So what is the International Fume Challenge? And what it is in our goals for this program was really around how do we improve lab safety and energy efficiency, not just, with a few people, but more of a collaborative team effort involving all the relevant stakeholders involved in this. Whether it's the Green Labs folks or the facilities, obviously the researchers, EH&S. We want to get all those involved along with management to make a successful project that's going to have a big impact on your energy use and safety in the facility. So again, the scope of this then involves looking at aspects of your, looking at what are the best opportunities for, fume hood energy savings, but also looking at system testing, making sure that your existing systems are working correctly so that, reducing the sash, for example, will save energy, will reduce flows in your specific building. Also, again, promoting education and behavior change on fume hood use so that people will be using it properly, safely, as well as efficiently. And then looking at other opportunities for saving energy within the facility. And lastly, looking at fume hood utilization so that if hoods aren't being used or less used, then what can be done, whether it's hibernating them or putting them, sharing use with other facilities, other operations, other researchers. So again, these are sort of different aspects of the program and our goals. The benefits to the participants, well, again, have hopefully a high impact. Again, to identify those buildings that will have the greatest impact of this program. So they're going to have significant energy savings, provide them sort of a roadmap. So what are the best practices for doing these type of programs, for engaging your team on safety and savings with respect to your labs, providing feedback, obviously being able to learn how effective your efforts are relative to others. So if you don't want doing these programs, how well are you doing them and see how you compare to others. Again, a way to increase the savings by looking at not just the fume hoods, but looking at other aspects of lab energy use and what can be done to reduce that. And lastly, recognition, being able to get recognition literally globally around your peers and other organizations, being able to be recognized for excellent performance. So those are some of the benefits to the participants. Now, again, how is this different from just a normal shut the sash contest? And really what we have is we've tried to create a more comprehensive approach to ensure a greater impact. So again, we have obviously a strong focus on safety, on the lab and fume hood safety. We're looking at also how do we select the best buildings so that you're applying it in a building where you're going to have more of an energy saving impact. I mean, sometimes labs, well, obviously you can have constant volume hoods where closing the sash is not going to reduce the energy use. Even in some buildings with variable volume hoods, the hoods aren't the driver. So in that case, lowering the sash just switches flow from the fume hood to a general exhaust and doesn't impact your energy use. So we want to help people look for those best buildings where probably ones with greater fume hood densities where you're going to lowering the fume hood sashes is going to have a true impact. And lastly, we want to make sure people are looking at their systems and testing them to make sure, again, they're operating correctly so that, again, you will get that savings that lowering the sash will, in fact, reduce the energy use. The other thing about this is we want to include not just the researchers and the Green Lab staff, obviously they're critical to this program, but also get involved with the safety and facilities staff, looking at the major systems involved and getting them involved as well to make a more successful program. At the same time, looking at manufacturers and the service providers for their support so they can help the participants so that, again, they can make sure these systems are being used properly. If there's issues that need to be corrected, then get them involved as well as to look for ways to increase or upgrade the operation and the efficiency of the facility. And lastly, again, as I said, we want to encourage people to look at other actions to save energy, be able to identify opportunities for what can be done beyond just the fume hood, lowering the sashes, but other aspects of the laboratory. Again, so basically the fume hoods, yes, they're obviously a very significant aspect of this program, but it's not the only focus. There's other ways we're going to be looking at trying to help reduce energy use and increase safety. So with that, really, we have three different phases or components of the challenge that really constitute what the challenge is about. Phase one is effectively preparations to ensure maximum impact. Then we have the actual shut the sash competition itself. And lastly, we have an area around identifying additional savings, other ways to save energy within the facility. So to look at those in a little bit more detail, The first one, again, is around the preparations for impact. So, number one, obviously, you want to create a team around that's going to be looking at this. So, engaging your team members, as I said, obviously researchers, your green lab staff, looking at facilities, looking at EH&S, and also lab management and senior management to get them involved in this program. Typically we find that when you're looking at trying to create change and create savings, you need to get all these different stakeholders involved, get them on board and excited about the program, which I think can be done to really create lasting impact. Then a second step of that is to obviously select the challenge buildings. As I mentioned, we want to make sure that they're going to have impact, that you're not just working on buildings where the fume hoods aren't going to be a major factor in the savings. One of the ways that we can help you do that is with the free AIM report that Allison talked about earlier. So this is the Shut the Sash challenge is one of the measures that's free and that you can use. So by putting your building into the LBT, you can then go and get a free AIM report around multiple measures, but one of them that's in the free report is, of course, this Shut the Sash challenge. So with that, you can look at multiple buildings and find which building is going to have the greatest impact and see what some projected savings would be by implementing this program. So this is a way to help you really target your efforts on something that's going to have maximum impact. And lastly, but very critically, is to look at some very simple operational checks to make sure that both the fume hoods and the air systems related to that are working correctly. So obviously, if the systems aren't working correctly, lowering the sash is not going to have as much impact. So we want to help you with some simple operational checks and ways of making sure that the building is working correctly and that that your behavioral impact program is in effect have its impact that you're expecting. So that represents sort of a preparation for it. Then we have the actual Shut the Sash competition. Again, an important part of that is educating the researchers on energy efficient and safe fume hood use. So that's a critical piece of that. And then obviously conducting the challenge itself. That involves obviously doing some checks before to see what the hood usage in terms of sash positions have been and flows are before you start the program, start this contest. You run the contest and then see what they are both during and then after. So it's an aspect of monitoring the system, and that can be done multiple ways. It could be done through your building management system. It could be through a lab fume hood control system, or it could just be manual. It could just be doing some manual checks of how the people are, responding, whether they're lowering the sashes. So multiple ways you can participate in that aspect. But bottom line is to see, create this sort of behavior change program around getting users engaged to keep the sashes down when they're not using the fume hoods. So once you have that and you've recognized your winners locally, then obviously we can report that back to I2SL. And then the final part of this is, again, looking for what else can be done to increase your energy savings. So part of that could be really different, one of multiple ways of actually doing an audit on the building. A simple way to do that is to use the AIM report. So that's the full AIM report we talked about. Now, you can obviously purchase the AIM report and do it yourself, but we also expect that we have, again, quite a few consultants that are picking up on using the AIM report. So we will probably provide resources that people can use. So if they don't want to purchase the AIM report themselves or want help with it, they can turn to these outside experts that can help them. So whether it's doing the AIM report yourself, working with someone else around it, or if you have done audits at the building or have other resources to provide an audit, that's a great way as well. So we're just encouraging people to look at what else can be done in those buildings to save energy and at least identify them. We're not asking you to necessarily go through and do the whole project, but at least we want to bring up those opportunities and cover them so that you can see what are the best ways to proceed and hopefully move forward with it. But again, that's really outside the scope of the challenge. And lastly, I guess, and importantly too, to look at how the hoods are being used and see if some of those hoods, if they're not being used or just being used as storage, whether they can instead be hibernated or decommissioned, or perhaps shared with other research groups to better utilize those fume hoods. So those resources then are going to be used in a more effective manner. So with that, I wanted to indicate, sort of relating to what Allison was talking about earlier, that there are some tie-ins in what we're doing with the LBT. The LBT becomes sort of one of the ways the data is put in for the challenge, basically in terms of building data. So that would be used. You can then obviously get a score, see what your score is. Again, doesn't require a lot of data. As Allison mentioned, maybe 10 or 12 bits of information will provide a score. That then provides enough information to provide a free AIM report that you can then go through for that as well. And again, we'll initially start with using the LBT for the building data. For the rest of the data, we'll use that more of a web-based form for that. Eventually, the LBT will become the entry point for all the information, but initially we'll use it just for the building data. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Again, relating to that AIM report, as I said, again, as we have, as Allison talked about, again, 9 of the measures relate to fume hoods. The free demo version does include that shut the sash measure. So we'll use that in the first part of the program to be able to assess which are the right buildings to use. And then you can use it in the end of the program to identify other opportunities, whether it's yourself or others that are doing it for you, or whether you're doing another approach. Again, you don't have to use the AIM report, but that's obviously a great way to do it. But again, we're just trying to encourage you to look for other opportunities to save in your building. So with that, again, as I mentioned, if you look at sort of a little bit of a diagram here on how this will work in terms of the data, we have the 2 sources of information. One is the building data, and one is the questionnaire relating to the challenge, on what you've done to implement the challenge. So the building data, again, will go through the LBT. That then can be used directly for analysis by us for scoring the program, but also that data then can be used for both the free AIM report and for the full AIM report for getting information about what you can do. As well, in terms of the challenge side of it, looking at the questionnaire about what you've done in terms of the challenge, how you've implemented it, what different pieces you've done, that will be through like a Google form or some web-based form. And then again, we'll analyze that, be able to then to score it based on the different aspects you've done. And then that information we can use for the awards and indicating back to you how well you did compared to your peers. So with that, we've creating a structure around how the program will operate. Obviously, we have different groups here. We have a Challenge Leadership Council, which is sort of the governing body for the group that reports to the board of directors. But underneath that, we have the actual working groups that are going to make all this happen. In 2026, we'll have 2 groups that will be active. One is what we call the Challenge Program Structure, TAG, or Technical Advisory Group. That's creating the different elements, and we'll talk a little more about that in a second, as well as the Documentation TAG, which is, again, the other group that'll be operating in 2026. We do have other groups that will form later around the marketing and promotion aspects as we get into 2027, obviously helping to promote the challenge as well as decide what sort of awards we want to provide. And then as we begin to integrate this into the LBT in a more thorough manner through software, then we'll have another group that's helping with that, again, more in the 2027 timeframe. So again, just in terms of those tag groups, the ones that we're putting in place this year, as I mentioned, we have the program structure tag, and that group will be sort of helping to refine those 3 phases I mentioned earlier for an impactful challenge. Look at what the different implementation methods we're recommending and which the people are using. So we'll have what's a good way of forming a team or looking at how your systems are operating, sort of a good, better, best, and then be able to score around that. What are the technology we want to include, what best practices, et cetera. And then we'll have the assessment questions that will be part of that Google form or web-based form to gauge how the difference, how effective you have been in succeeding at this. And then obviously that group will be assigning weighting and points to be able to actually score people's performance. The other group we mentioned is the tag around documentation. Again, they're going to help provide a lot of the materials to help people with what can be done and what are the best practices around aspects of the challenge. So, also FAQs. So, what are the technical resources? So they'll be defining the content structure, the organization, helping to recruit subject matter experts to write some of this, oversee some of the development of this in terms of the documents, and doing some peer reviews of the material. And again, I mentioned good to get FAQs to help people with different aspects of it. So that's the other tag that'll be effective in 2026. So from a timeline standpoint, obviously this year we're sort of building the challenge, developing it along the lines I've just described. We'll also be doing some sort of pilot testing of the different tools and elements. That'll be happening sort of mid-year in this year. And then we'll announce the challenge probably at the conference in September in Boston. And then we'll launch the challenge then in January or early Q1 of 2027 next year. The challenge itself will run for about 6 months, probably ending about sort of mid-year, so we can tally the results and present that at the conference that we'll have in 2027. So that's sort of the timeline. Again, you might say, well, how can I get involved? This sounds like an interesting program. What can we do? And number one, obviously, we'd love to get you involved in the technical advisory groups. So, we'd love to have you volunteer to join one of the two tags we have now that we're putting in place, the program structure tag and the documentation tag. So I think it's a great way to get involved with the program. It's a great way to extend your networks and help make an impact on lab energy efficiency and safety in laboratories. So again, feel free to get in touch. We have a form that you can do to fill out your information and submit for an application to join one of these tags. That's on. We put the web address here. It's basically the Fume Hood Challenge page on our website. That's pretty easy to find, or you can just use this web address here. So again, love to get you involved in shaping and contributing to this initiative. But again, additionally, if you're interested, you're a lab owner and you'd like to sort of get a little bit of a leg up on the challenge and get some early knowledge on what's involved, as well as pilot some of these different pieces, would love to also get you involved in that. So helping sort of do some of the beta testing on it. So we're going to be putting a call out for challenge pilot participants later, probably mid-year. But again, love to get you involved now, or at least sign you up. So if you're interested in being a pilot participant, again, contact either myself, president at I2SL.org, or Kathleen. You can see her email address here as well. So again, love to also get you involved as a participant in terms of piloting the program.